Hello, my loves. Okay, the last episode. I'm nervous. I don't know why. I sat down to film this like an hour ago, and before I could start filming, I got up and I went and totally cheated on my diet. I totally blew my diet because that's what I do. I stress eat. And now I'm like stuffed. So let's recap. I've been with the company 9 years. I have went from a very ambitious, excited, loyal employee to, because of circumstance after circumstances and situation after situation and knock after knock, throughout all of those situations, I still had faith in this company. I did. I had so much faith that if I just kept giving my all, if I just kept proving myself, if I just kept doing my best and showing up, and I had faith that something would happen. There would be a difference. And this last leg of the journey, I don't know. Let's just get into it. Let's just start. So the site director at the local site, remember I'm back in my hometown, I'm working remotely, and the site director at this local site had been begging me, I need you in this role, I need you in this role, I need you in this role. And it was a senior account manager role, which if you remember, I'd done that in the very first site I was in, senior account manager. And in that role at that site, I had anywhere from 600 to 700 people directly or indirectly reporting to me. I had 3 lines of business. I had about 40 team managers and about 6 account managers that reported to me. With this site, this was a much smaller site. There was about 200 employees, 1 line of business, unless you count their like internal escalation team, and only about 7 team leaders. So much smaller scale site. So I told him, when the senior account manager role posts, just let me know and I'll apply. As I said before, I needed to get out of this house. Working from home was just not my jam. I had this saying at work, people are my thing, and I needed to be around people. I needed to be around people. So the position posts, and it's not a senior account manager, it's an account manager. So I knew that would be a significant decrease in pay. I didn't care about the title, but that was going to cut my salary by over 1/3. I told him, I said, I can't take that. I'm sorry, but it's too much of a pay reduction. I can't take it. So over the next few days, he reached out to me several times. He was apologizing, but also hoping I would reconsider. But I wasn't going to reconsider until my mom got bit by a copperhead snake. My mom is diabetic. She has a heart condition, and I'm working from home, and my stepdad calls me and says, I'm rushing your mother to the ER. So I dart out the house. Like, on the way to meet my mom, I call my boss and I said, I'm like frantic. I said, my mom's been bit by a copperhead snake on the foot. She's diabetic. She has a heart condition. Like, I'm on my way to the hospital. And she said, yeah, absolutely. Take care of your mom. I was in such a panic. I left the house without any shoes on. So I get to the local hospital and they are med flighting her to another hospital about 2 hours away. So I go to that hospital. I sent my boss like a quick little text update. I stayed with my mom that night, and she was in more pain than I've ever witnessed another human being be in. It was so intense. She was seizing throughout the night. And so I was up all night with her. It was, I begged the doctor. I said, you've got to give her more pain meds. And the doctor said, I can't give her anymore. It'll lower her heart rate too much. I can't do it. So that was pretty insane. I had told my boss I had a very important call that day that I did not want to miss. But I'd also been up all night with my mom in this situation. So when my aunt and my cousin arrived, I said, I got a call in a couple of hours. I'm going to go to my car in the hospital parking garage and take a nap and set my alarms that I'm up for this call so I can take this call and then I'll be back up here. So they said, okay. That's how dedicated I was. Like, what the hell? To me, if I had someone reporting to me that took those measures just to be on an important call, I would be so appreciative. In fact, I would tell that person, don't you dare join that call. We can handle that call without you. And I think that's where I get so... That is where I don't understand how so many leaders in this company do not have that level of, I don't know, is it morality? Is it ethics? Is it just they don't know how to be leaders? I don't know what it is. But what I do know is if that was someone I was leading and they had been through that situation, number one, I would have texted and checked on them, which did not happen. Any update that was given about my mother and my inability to work, or if I was going to be able to join a call, I had to reach out to them. So I set my alarm. I set my alarm. And I woke up like 10 minutes before the call, got me something to drink real quick, joined the call. And I was on the call. And there was about 15 minutes left on this call. But we were wrapping up the call. And my aunt starts texting me. And she's saying, your mom is in so much pain. I don't know what to do. It's really bad. And I said, I'll be right there. So I tell my boss, I said, I gotta go. My mom is in, I gotta go. My aunt's telling me I gotta come. And she said, okay. So I think I missed total probably 2.5 days of work for my mom. And the first day I came back to work, I had like a one-on-one with my boss, but it was a weird structure. So it was kind of my boss, kind of my boss's boss, but it was weird. And we get on the call and I kind of tell her, you know, how mom is doing. I think she might have asked, how's everything? How's your mom? I'm like, well, this. And she goes, okay. She goes, I just want to talk to you. The next time you have to take that many days off, I need you to pre-plan it. I don't know how you pre-plan a copperhead bite. I mean, I suppose you could say Wednesday at 4 o'clock, I'm going to do some snake handling. And you may get bit by the snake, in which we could pre-plan that might happen. But I think the normal person kind of doesn't want to pre-plan a copperhead bite that could, you know, put them in ICU and risk the potential, since they're diabetic, of having their foot maybe amputated. I don't know anyone pre-plan that, but you know, okay. So I said, absolutely. And then I called the HR manager at the site that had the account manager role, and I said, just wanted you to know I'm sending my application in today. So I applied that day. I had my interview with, I'm not sure her role. I want to say director. It may have been a VP. I don't know what her title was. But I had my interview with her. She loved me. So the site director at that site called within just a couple of days with the job offer. And I said, no, I can't go that low of a salary. Sorry, no. And so he called me the next day, and he had went a little bit higher. And I said, no, like I can't. And he goes, well, what's the minimum that you can do? And I don't know that I gave him an answer. I really don't know how that conversation went. I don't know if I gave him a number or he came back to me later and said, this is as high as we can go. And I was a little apprehensive because it was a considerable drop. Well, I'll just tell you, because what's it matter now? It was $20,000 drop in pay. $20,000. And that was after some heavy negotiating. But it was a $20,000 drop in pay, but it was one that I applied for. Like, I knew going in, but I just, again, it was for my mental health. I thought from a mental health perspective that I just needed to get back in a site. So that was why I thought, what the hell? Let's just do it. I don't even know where to begin this story. This is such a fresh story. And I feel like this is going to be the longest of all three of the videos. So it might require some editing down. So let me say this first. I knew a lot of people in this site already. We had, when I worked at the very first site in South Carolina and also the site in Alabama, we had the same client that this site had for years. They had recently changed clients a couple years ago, but I knew the HR manager really well. I had worked with several of the team leaders. When I was on the leadership development team, I spent time in this site. It was one of the sites that I owned as part of leadership development. So I knew the folks in the site. So I thought I knew what I was getting into. A very tenured team for the most part. Most of the team leaders had years of tenure and experience. HR manager had been there for forever. Really, the only new player at the site was the site director. And I had worked with him on the leadership development team, so I knew how he worked. He knew how I worked. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? Okay, so I start. And from the moment I walk in the door, because so many of the folks at the site were already comfortable with me. Not everybody. I had to, you know, we're Appalachian folk. We don't warm up to people very easily, which was some of that site director's challenge. I will give him that. He was a New Jersey boy, maybe New Yorker. I can't remember, but he wasn't from around these parts. So I was. So as soon as I get there, I just start hearing stories. Story after story after story after story. Autumn, you've got to do something about the site director. Autumn, you've got to do something about the site director. And I'm just like, oh, okay, hold up. It can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. He he's a nice guy. So this is going to be hard, but a lot of this I told him to his face. He was a nice guy, but he was so out of his element. He was so out of his element. He didn't know how to communicate. He didn't know how to interact with people. He wasn't real strong on a client perspective. Like, I thought he was a sales guy, but he wasn't teaching them how to sell. He was teaching them how to cram. Let me take that back. I don't think he taught them how to cram. I'm going to take that back. I think he turned a blind eye to it too many times. He was in a place he did not want to be, in a situation that he could not win. Added to that an extreme amount of pressure, and it was a perfect storm. It was a perfect storm. Most of my day was spent trying to talk people down from quitting. Like I understand he said that to you, but you know, I'm going to try to make it right. Can you just not quit? He told one agent, we had this one agent, just the type of employee that you want in your site. Like, she may not have always been great at what she did, but she worked hard. She was so pleasant. And you better believe that at some point, she was going to figure out how to be great at what she was doing. She was just an excellent employee. And she had almost sold what they called a triple play. Like, she had a lot of challenges with being able to sell. It took her a long time, to the point that she said she was in tears at home thinking she was going to get fired because she couldn't sell. And so that was her journey, right? Not being able to sell, trying really hard, praying about it at home. So anyway, she's on the phone with a customer and she almost sells a triple play. In the end, she wasn't able to nail it, but she almost sold it. And she comes up to the site director and she goes, "Hey, did you hear me? I almost got that triple play." Just so excited that she got as close as she did. And he just looks at her and goes, "But you didn't." What? That's just an example of the things that he would say. And so this was just the first couple weeks I was there. So the lady that hired me, the HR manager and I had a call with her. And this lady had hired me and asked me to deliver her this feedback regarding the site director. So the HR manager and I have this call and we deliver the feedback that was requested of us. Now, I understand this looks like we're throwing this site director under the bus, but first of all, it was asked of me to do beforehand. And second of all, everything I said to him. Like, I've always said, I'm never going to throw you under the bus. You're always going to know it's coming. And I said it all to his face, in the hopes that he would understand. But anyway, we're telling her this information and she goes, "Well, Autumn," she goes, "it looks like I may need you to end up being the site director." We all know that I have a habit of saying I don't want it. I didn't say it in this moment because really in my mind, I hadn't been there long enough. I had been there long enough to say that this was going to be a disaster. But I hadn't been there long enough to really get... I was still hopeful. I was still hopeful. So anyway, a couple weeks later, she was moved to another account and we got someone different. I knew of this person knew of me. So she comes to the site, and I'd probably been there 3 weeks, maybe 4. And what I had noticed is this account was ran with absolutely no structure, no business strategy. There was no coaching strategy. There was absolutely nothing but chickens with their head cut off, running around yelling, sell, sell, sell. Have you sold anything today? Have you sold anything today? But as anyone knows, when you run any type of account, or there has to be a method to the madness. There has to be a strategy. There has to be something that kind of formulates how you're going to spend your day. You know what I mean? And there was none of that. So I'm sitting in the conference room with my site director and this new director or VP or whatever her title was. I don't know. And I said, the one thing I've noticed with this account is there's no strategy. Yes, there is. This is what she tells me. Well, I've been here a month and I haven't seen it. So, oh, well, we'll show it to you. Okay, that'd be great. That would be awesome. I would think the account manager shouldn't have to beg to see the strategy, but now I never saw it. Because the reality is they didn't have one. They literally didn't have one. It was a clusterfuck. It was a clusterfuck. I don't know how else to say it. It was the client beating the holy shit out of the site directors and the account managers 3, sometimes 4 times a day on a call. You know, given that many calls, you can't go out and even execute any strategy. The only thing you can do is go tell your TLs, I need your people to sell. And then they can just go to their agents and say, I need you to sell. But there's no strategy whatsoever. So our site director's inadequacy. I had team leaders quitting. And, you know, one of the perks of going to this site was my wonderful group of senior TLs, like tenure, experience. And now the site director is causing that experience to just walk out the door. Just walk out the door. So, before I knew it, I had 1 tenured TL. 2. I had 2. 2 tenured TLs. The rest were all new. I needed to spend my time developing them. I didn't have the time to develop them because I was too busy getting beat up by the client. Then my HR manager tells me she's going to quit. Oh, man. I was crushed. I really thought, I can't survive if you go. Like, no, don't go. She had worked there for so long. She had so much trust and relationships established with the people there. But it was a constant battle. I battled with the site director, but I was too busy trying to work with operations that I just was like this. Like, just let me do my job. She couldn't. She not that she couldn't physically do it, but their roles, they had to work together on so many more tasks than I had to. I I'll tell you, I think this was the final straw. She can comment down below if this wasn't the final straw, or she can text me and then I can correct it. I think the final straw was, your metrics with this client change every month, and it's based off of your FTE, which is your, actually no, it's not based off your FTE. That would have made a little bit more sense. It was based off your total head count. So it didn't even have to be a full-time employee. If they were a butt in the seat for 3 hours a day, they counted towards your metrics or your goals that you had to hit that next month. So in his mind, I have to get my goals as low as possible next month, so that I don't have as high a goal that I have to hit. Does that make sense? That is an inside joke that a lot of people are yelling at their TV about right now. Okay. So in his mind, I'm just going to terminate a bunch of people so that I have a lower goal next month. Well, the HR manager and I tried to tell him, you actually can't just terminate these people. It's illegal. Like you can't just. And it was an epic battle that ended up in yelling. Like, we're standing outside on this little carport area, and we're yelling at one another, just trying to get him to understand that is illegal. Like, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? It's illegal. You can't do that. And so finally he got frustrated. He goes, well, I'll just call my boss. Unless she can change the labor laws, I mean, you can go ahead and call, but it's still going to be illegal. I think that was the final straw for the HR manager. She decided to quit. Well, she put in her notice and all that. I called his boss and I all but begged and pleaded. I said, you cannot let this HR manager go. You can't let her go. Like, she's the fiber that holds this site together. Please don't let her go. And they let her go. They didn't try to stop her. Which I thought, man, if this long-time employee is not valued more than that, then I'm sure I have no value as well. So she leaves. Now I have no HR manager. I have a site director that he just doesn't know what to do. He just doesn't know what to do. And it's starting to get tense between me and him, because I'm literally saying, I need you to just back off, let me do my job, and you just speak to the client. And I'll handle this. I got this. But I can't handle this unless you back off and just go. Like, he would want to spend hours in my office talking, and I don't have time to update you for hours. Then I guess about September, end of September, we got word that we were getting another director. So I'm there July, August, 3 months, and we're about to start director number 3. Before we enter this new director, I want to tell you kind of where my mindset was. And a lot of this I did not share with anyone at the site. In fact, when they watch this video, this will be the first time they heard it. And I hope none of them hold it against me that I didn't mention this. But I knew the site was in trouble. I knew that the site was not going to be around for the long haul. And I'll tell you how I knew. No one told me. But being on the leadership development team, I had been in many sites over the past couple of years. And all the other sites had an investment in their site. They had new branding. And if the site itself wasn't able to afford the expensive branding, they at least painted the walls the new colors of our branding. But every site I went into, I saw some sort of new branding, except this site. It had not been invested in at all. And so in my mind, I'm thinking this site is destined to not fail, but I don't think the company is willing to invest in this site anymore. There was a crack all through the foundation. It was kind of a running joke. There was no effort to repair that. They were just watching it. The site had been slated for new carpet, but they couldn't get new carpet because of the crack. And there was always just some reason why this couldn't be done or that couldn't be done. So I had my doubts. In the back of my mind, I thought, if they're not investing in this site, that can't be a good sign. Especially with our company. Let me take a pause right here and tell you a little something about my company. We love us some branding. We have spent, and I've seen it, over the course of 9.5 years, I've seen a lot of changes in our company branding. They change that shit once a year. And the latest and greatest branding, I helped create that. I sat in a conference room in Florida and I helped create the 7 principles, which stem off of the saying, we help caring people one interaction at a time. We called it the 7 principles. Last year, they changed it to the 7 truths. This is our 7 truths. The marketing team spent an enormous amount of time and effort and money into branding these 7 truths. You couldn't hardly find these 7 truths on our site, however. But when I was still on the leadership development team, I don't know if you've noticed a trend throughout these 7 sites, these 7 truths, these 3 videos, but I vocalize my opinion. That could be a lot of what's hurt me throughout the years at this company. But the truly great leaders that I've had, they figured out that me vocalizing my opinion is because I'm passionate and I feel very strongly about something. And they figured out a way that if I was wrong, they taught me a lesson. And if I was right, great things tend to happen from that. So, as we were rebranding the 7 principles into the 7 truths, I told some executives at on a call from our corporate headquarters, I said, we're spending a lot of money putting these truths on the wall and making it really pretty. But are we putting as much time and effort in making sure that these are the employees' truths? That this is more than just pretty writing on a wall? That this is what they're experiencing in these sites? And what I was told was, it is much the agent's responsibility to make these truths their truth as it is ours. I think that's a company cop-out. You can spend all the money you want on a marketing campaign to put pretty words on a wall. It doesn't make it a truth just because you call it a truth. What makes it a truth is that if people can read those words and say that that's their experience. And I guarantee you, if you were to go into the vast majority of our sites, it's not their truth. Their wall may say it, but it's not their truth. So, anyway, that marketing campaign was nowhere in our site. So I had this feeling that there was a reason. But I had this new wave of hope when we were getting a new team, new director, new VP. I really don't know what their titles were. I didn't care. I had worked with them before in Montgomery, so I knew them. I knew they were hard, but I knew they were fair. So I was excited. So the first thing that I do when I meet with these individuals when they come to the site is I tell them the challenges. I think they could tell from the very first, both of these people were very no nonsense. I think they could tell from the first interaction that the site director was in over his head. They directed a lot of their questions to me. I told them how painful it was to lose our HR manager and that we had yet gotten another one. Although we did have an HRA who was incredible and amazing, and I begged to give her a higher role, a higher pay. Literally for 2 or 3 months, I did everything I could so that she did not walk out the door. Eventually, she walked out the door as well. But anyway, she was what we had of an HR team. And don't get me wrong, she could hold it down. Like, she could hold down the fort like nobody's business. But it was still a challenge not having an HR manager because there was a lot that she couldn't do because she wasn't an HR manager. So anyway, I'm telling, this is what we got going on. I'm telling these 2 new people, this is what we got going on. And I felt a little bit of excitement and a little bit of renewed sense of hope when they said, maybe in this site, what we need is to do things differently. We had a problem with absenteeism, so they said maybe we come up with some creative ideas. And I said, yes. In my mind, I knew that what a site in the heart of Appalachia needed was a site that worked for the people. Not expected the people to work for it, because we're different around here. Like, we're a little different. We travel long distances to get to work. When you see something that says 10 miles down the road, boo, that ain't going to take you 8 minutes. Okay? You're not going 60 miles an hour in these curves. So it was a different beast here, and what we needed was someone who could think strategically and think differently and be willing to let us try some different ideas. So I got excited. I thought, yes. Then the VP, director, whatever their titles were, she came to me. Well, the site director told me he was leaving the company. So I knew this long before anyone else. I didn't tell anyone. Because I wanted him to... Well, I guess I had just learned over time that anything can happen. Just like you don't think you have that job till you sign the dotted line, you don't think someone's gone until they're out the door. So, the day he announces that he's leaving, his boss was there, and let me just say, I came up with creative scheduling ideas that I thought would work beautifully for our site. They were shot down. Basically, you said you want to try creative things, but you're not going to actually try creative things. You basically want to keep doing the same thing and then wonder why nothing's getting better. So she comes to me and she says, the site director is quitting. I said, I'm aware. The very next thing out of her mouth was, I'm not giving it to you, and here's why. Hold up. In order to not give me something, wouldn't I need to vocalize my desire to have it? Like, I was very taken aback. And she said, we got a couple different things that we're going to do. So she says, we're going to bring you up to a senior account manager level. We had another site that was without a site director, so we're going to have one site director over both sites. And she's giving me this spiel. And I let her finish. I don't say anything. And then when she finishes, I said, I don't want it. And I would have thought you would have waited to give me all the reasons why you weren't going to choose me for me to actually vocalize some interest. But I don't want it. Oh, well, that's good, she says. I didn't know. Yeah, that's why you wait for someone to show interest before giving them feedback as to why it's not going to happen. I had been very vocal to everyone around me that I didn't want it. Like, everyone knew I wasn't going to apply. I had no interest. I didn't want it. I had already been I have been telling people for years I don't want it. So I don't know what makes you think that I do, but appreciate the feedback. So this was in October. This was in October. So I want to make this abundantly clear. This company did not care about this site or the people in this site. The company didn't care. They allowed this site to go without an HR manager, to go without a site director, to go without any updates to the building, to go without any type of branding for quite some time. The company did not care about this site or the people in it. So this was in October that I was told I would not get a position I did not want. Whether I wanted it or not, whether I was getting it or not, I had to do it for all of October. I did the site director role. I did my role. I was onboarding new team leaders constantly. And I did not have an HR manager for all of October, all of November. While this is going on, this same leader is telling me, if you don't turn the site around, the site's going to end up closing. Almost like a threat. Well, if you want me, and I told her this in a conversation, if you want me to turn some of this performance around, I need help. No HR manager, no site director. I said, I need help if you want me to turn it around. So December came and went. No HR manager, no site director, just me. I continued saying, I need help. Can we get an HR manager? Can you promote this person that is doing all the HR tasks and deserves it? No, we can't. Then can I get an HR manager? We're working on it. Can I get a site director? We're working on it. So, let me make this very clear. A role that I said I didn't want, but before I said that I was told I wasn't getting, was the same role my leaders had me do for all of October, all of November, all of December, all of January, into February. 5 months they had me doing my job, the site director job, and HR. Juggling 3 roles because that HR assistant that I begged and pleaded for to get another job, she eventually left. Everyone eventually left except for a few people. 5 months I was doing multiple roles at one time, begging for help or begging for these roles to be filled. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm one person. I'm one person. And help never came. The threat continued of, if we don't turn this around, the site's not going to be able to stay open. If we don't turn this around, the site's not going to be able to stay open. Don't threaten me if you're not willing to invest in this site, it was my final straw. I was on my way to the site one morning. It was pajama day. And I got pulled over by a state trooper in my pajamas. And I had a complete and total nervous breakdown. This was in February. Maybe mid-February. I don't remember exactly. I was out of work for about 6 weeks. On leave. 9.5 years with the company, I'd never taken a leave of absence. But I was on leave. You know, when I called this leader and said I was going on leave, a lot of promises were made. There was a lot of conversation had. We'll make sure that we help you through this. You know, I'll have the HR director follow up on with you. You know, I know you've never done this before. We want to make sure it's as smooth as process as possible. Blah, 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 blah. In that 6 weeks, no one ever reached out to me. People on the site did. My leaders did not. I had to reach out to them if I needed anything. Twice, my paycheck was short. Now, I'd been with the company 9.5 years. My paycheck had never been short. Twice, while I'm on leave, my paycheck is short. So finally, after about 6 weeks, my doctor and I decided that I could try to return to work. I couldn't do it. I think I went back to work for 2 days, and I just knew I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to go back to that stress. So the second day, one of my dear friends at the site, I love him, I was just crying. He was like, just go home. Like, so I left, and I had to reapply for leave. There were a couple of conversations with my leader, a peer of mine, throughout this time of leave where I didn't realize it at the time. Looking back on it, they were almost persuading me to quit. Like, there were things said like, you know, maybe this just isn't the right job for you anymore. You know, you got to put your health first. Maybe this just isn't right for you. And it wasn't anymore. But I just feel like in those moments, support is what was warranted. The final straw was I was having trouble. If anybody has dealt with the Hartford, I'm going to name the Hartford because it's not connected with my company, but if anyone's dealt with them, they know, they understand. It is not an easy process. I had to keep taking that paperwork back to the doctor and keep taking it back to the doctor. So I finally got the first leave situated, and now I'm trying to get the second leave approved, and it's the same mess. And the HR director calls me. The HR director calls me, and he says, you know, what's the status of your leave? And I said, well, the last time I talked to the Hartford, they were going to work directly with my doctor because I've had to take the paperwork back to my doctor 2 or 3 times at this point. I said, it's a process like it was before. I said, it'll eventually get approved, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But it's just going to take time like it did the first time. To which he says, well, you know, it's imperative that you get this worked out, because either you get it worked out or you got to come back to work. Let me pause right here and tell you, I had enough vacation days and enough sick days. That tells you anything about how many sick days and how many vacation days I took. I had enough to cover me for months. And I was still covered. He said, so technically I could have just been out on vacation or sick time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I was just missing work. And he goes, well, you really need to get that leave approved or you risk being demoted. Okay, first of all, I don't know what school you got your HR education from. But did you just threaten somebody on leave? Like, I didn't say that. But an HR director just threatened somebody that's on a leave of absence. And I'm going to need all you HR people out there to correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be illegal. So I got off the phone with him, and it took me until the next day to decide I wasn't dealing with this company another day of my life. I didn't care that I was going to be unemployed. I didn't care that I was going to have to start all over somewhere else, if I could even find another job. I didn't care. I told my family, I said, I will flip burgers at the local gas station and be the cutest little hamburger maker you ever seen in your life. I will be so nice and friendly. All the customers going to love me. I'll do that. I'll work 2 jobs. I'll work at McDonald's and down the gas station down the road before I will give this company another drop of my blood, my sweat, or my tears. Fuck you. And that's how I felt. Like, I'm sorry. I tried to be very professional the first 2, but the emotion is there. I'm done. I really didn't care what it took or how poor I might have to live. I didn't care. It was worth it to no longer deal with these people. So I sent a very lengthy letter of resignation. I didn't send it to my boss. She was CC'd on it, as was the director, the HR director that threatened me. But I sent it to the VP of HR for all of North America and just CC'd these individuals on it. And in a very mature, professional, diplomatic manner, I told her exactly what I thought about the company, along with what that HR director had said to me. I wasn't sure that I would get a reply, but she did. She replied. And before I knew it, the HR director was calling me, apologizing, and not only was he extremely friendly, but they gave me an additional 2 weeks of pay as a thank you. You remember before when I said that wasn't the last time I would get a little hush money? I think that 2 weeks of pay was some hush money. I can't help but feel like it was. It wasn't a thank you for your time. This company doesn't thank people for their time. Not with money. It was hush money. So, I quit. I was done. And I've had moments. I thought this company would sign my retirement check. So I've had moments that I've been sad. I've been angry. But it has also, it has taught me so much. It has taught me so much about myself, about what a leader should be and what a company should be and what they shouldn't be. And I think that's why I want to share it with so many of you. When you give so much to a company, you have got to expect a return on that in some form or fashion. You can't give 110% to a company and not expect 110% back. And a good leader is going to give it back, whether it be in appreciation, whether it be in development, whether it be in bonuses. They are going to show you and let you know how much you are appreciated. And it becomes this beautiful circle of leadership, because the more they give back to you, the more you're willing to give to them. And it can be an absolutely beautiful relationship. But if you're not getting your return on investment, don't stay with that company. If you are experiencing any type of racism or sexism or sexual remarks like you belong on a stripper pole, raise the flag. Don't take it. Don't think to yourself, well, I don't want to make any noise, or I don't want to cause any trouble. Cause trouble. Cause trouble. Companies cannot treat their employees that way. Period. You have rights as an employee. But not only do you have rights as an employee, your leader has an obligation to be the best leader they can possibly be for you. And if they're not, that's not your fault. That's the leader's fault. So, I learned a lot. I think the most heartbreaking reality that I learned is I never want to work in a call center again. I never want to be in this type of environment. I don't think I'm a corporate person. I don't think I'm meant for this corporate world. I love people. I love the development of people. I love to see people blossom and grow. I'm not a cutthroat person. And I think in these types of businesses, you got to be a little cutthroat. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice myself for that. Okay, I stopped and started like 1,000 times. I don't know how long. I can tell you this. My camera battery is almost dead and it was fully charged. So I got some editing to do. I don't know what this is going to look like in the end. But anyway, that is the end of my experience with a bad company. I kind of thought that I might forward this to the CEO one day. Not that he would watch it. But I will tell you, so many coworkers from all three of the sites that I worked in, coworkers, peers, people that I've led, have reached out to me. And I've gotten things like, well, you forgot to add this. And I'm like, oh man, I did. I mean, but there's so many stories, there's no way I could add them all. I even had one person say, that story that you shared, that was the moment I knew I no longer wanted to work for this company. I was like, it impacted you the same way? Like, what? The feedback has been overwhelming and just amazing, and I'm so appreciative of it. I'm sure there's people watching it who have some negative feedback. They haven't shared it yet. They probably won't. Because as I've talked about these stories, many of them know when I'm talking about them. So, I hope a lot of the stories that I share, the people I talked about, I had a lot of admiration for and a lot of respect for, despite the stories that I shared. And it was kind of hard to share some of those stories, but that was my experience. So I had to be authentic and I had to be honest in my experience. So anyway, all right, my loves, until next time.